welcome everyone. Thanks for the invite to the Closing Clients Group team. So let me actually share the screen here, and I made a quick presentation. I'm going to go over a couple of examples of clay tables that I think would be useful, and a few use cases. So let's get this started. Cool. So basically, why I think they chose me to run this webinar over the past few months. I've spent between 2 and 4 hours every day on clay.com. Mainly just running campaigns and creating campaigns for clients. And now basically every campaign I launch for every client really has some sort of clay usage. Depends, it can even be from like simple waterfall enrichments for by the emails to really like just creating 90% of the copy with AI, right? Or it can be, using sort of triggers or intent-based triggers to find the most relevant leads, right? So basically, every campaign that I create for every client has some sort of clay usage in it. Do I think is necessary? No, but it is useful for sure. So let's get into why you should use clay. So the question here really is why you should use clay, because I think you guys all should leverage clay in some way. Well, you can use it for relevance and personalization. So if you're thinking about like using clay just to write the personalized emails, then you probably don't need that. There are other tools that can do it probably for cheaper, and you probably don't need clay to just write, hey, I noticed you wear this college XYZ, and that sort of stuff, right? Like we already know that stuff doesn't really work. So if you're going to use clay, use it for these reasons, right? So relevance first. So as we already know, more relevant emails equals more or fewer spam complaints. So higher deliverability, more responses, more leads, better client results overall, right? And then second reason I think is very useful is the OpenAI ChatGPT integration. So really, like you can use ChatGPT everything, like really ChatGPT on websites, on whatever, like LinkedIn profiles, on just content creation. Like you can point ChatGPT at one specific data point, like for example, the description of a company, and ask to give a specific output. You can use ChatGPT basically as you want inside of Clay as an integration, and it's free, right? You just need your OpenAI API key, but it is free. Like you get it for free, so it is very useful, I think. And then another one is just integrations with our tools. So, for example, the best example as far as this usage is the waterfall enrichment. So let's say they want to run a waterfall enrichment for emails, and you already have, let's say, a couple of email subscriptions to, for example, Find Email, Polo, Lead Magic, whatever, Drop Contact. So instead of using Clay credits, you can connect your API keys to Clay and then use your subscriptions. So it's basically free, right? On the Clay side of things, like you're not spending Clay credits. That's what I mean. So best use cases of Clay, I grouped 6 different use cases. I think they are the most useful. So the first one is waterfall enrichment. So I'm going to give you an example of this. Actually, yeah, I have to change this. Let's see here. Okay, so this is an example, really simple stuff. Like you just have your first name, last name, and for example, the domain. You might need the domain of the website or the related URL, depends on the tools they are going to use for waterfall enrichment. So what we're just going to have to do is just go to add enrichment and then search for work email. And then the first one is going to be the waterfall enrichment right here, right? And then here you can basically select all the tools you want to use. And then the validation provider as well. That's simple stuff, right? And so what's going to do is it's going to use all the tools that you selected to use, and it's going to find an email. If it doesn't find an email, that's going to use the next tool, and so on. In the meantime, it's going to validate the email between each of these tools, right? So very useful, especially if you're using the tools that refund you the credit if they didn't find the email. So for example, Find Email I think is one, Lead Magic I think is one. So use those, because the other ones, like you might just get, like if you use one tool and here at the end of the waterfall enrichment, and it was basically impossible to find email for that prospect, and you're using another tool that charges you even though you didn't find the email address, then it's kind of a, you might as well just don't do it, right? Because you're just wasting credits. So let's go back to the presentation right here. So another example, or another use case is using ChatGPT or ClayGen, because I think right now they're kind of the same thing. Like you can select the ChatGPT enrichment, and it's gonna ask you if you want to use the content creation, or like for example, pointing ChatGPT to some sort of data. So for example, a company description, or if you want to use the web research sort of function, right? So it's like ClayGen. So basically, you can use ChatGPT, as I said, and ClayGen to do almost whatever you want. Um, some best use cases, in my opinion, are visiting a website to determine if the company fits your ICP. So this is something I created a video about recently, and it's cheap, it's easy, and you probably increase and improve your customer response rates by a lot. So essentially, once you scrape a list from Apollo, whatever list building tool you're using, SalesNav, you're gonna get like a pretty decent percentage of those people that are not relevant to what you actually wanted. So SalesNav specifically, like 30, like in some cases you might even get like 30% of the list is actually relevant. So the reason can be different industry, different job titles. It's typical, like if you're scraping, like for example, marketing agencies on Apollo, and you're just selecting the industry, marketing agency or marketing advertising, and then you're basically just maybe using paid ads, Google ads, Facebook ads as the keywords. You're gonna find most of these are gonna be agencies, but you're also gonna find, like for example, SaaS companies in the marketing industry. Maybe I don't know, Facebook ads, whatever companies. So you might get a decent percentage of the list that is completely irrelevant. And so, of course, if you assume they're all relevant and you send something like them something like, hey, we are marketing agencies, and you're actually reaching out to a SaaS company, that's completely irrelevant. You're going to get market spam, and so that's bad for your reputation. It's bad for your response rates as well. So I think one of the most useful use cases of Clay or ClayGent in this case is scraping the description of the company. You can do it with an enrichment, with a LinkedIn or company page enrichment column, or you don't even need that. Like sometimes you might just want to use the ClayGen to go to the company's website and determine whether that company actually fits the ICP that you wanted, right? So I do both. So I both use the ClayGen to go to the company's website and determine whether it's relevant or not based on my ICP, my target market for the campaign. And I also scrape the company description from LinkedIn. You also point ChatGPT to a company description to determine whether it's relevant to my target market, right? So very useful. I think you're probably gonna get like 50%, like 30 to 50% of the list is actually irrelevant, depending on how well you use the keywords and industry filters instead of Apollo. But you're gonna get a pretty big portion of the list that is completely relevant, and it is just better if you don't reach out to that, right, with the angle that you want to run. So really useful. So another one is visiting a website and finding really, like I put case studies, but really you can find any sort of information. So for example, we have a client right now. They are only working with companies, e-com brands with actually not e-com brands, but companies with a newsletter on their website. So what we're doing is we're using ClayGen to visit the company's website and determine whether the company has a newsletter opt-in form or opt-in or whatever, sign up form. So right. So basically, that just gives me a true or false output, and I just disqualify all the false ones, and I just keep the true ones, right? So you can find really anything anything that is on the website, you can probably scrape. And then another use case I think is very useful is the basically local business email finder, right? So I used to overcomplicate this with formulas, all of that stuff, but usually, like if you just tell ChatGPT to, given this company name, given this website, given this LinkedIn profile, given this address, and you don't even need all of those data points. Like you might just need 2 or 1, and you say to ChatGPT, find the owner of this company or find the email of this person. It's probably going to find the email of that person for with a pretty decent enrichment rate. So this is something that I overcomplicated in the beginning. I thought it was, first you wanna scrape the LinkedIn profile, and then you wanna scrape the website, and then if there's no email on the website, then you wanna scrape the Facebook page. But sometimes you might just use that, like you might just use a GPT column, and you just say, find the email of this person or find the owner of this local business, right? Given the address. So sometimes it's really that simple, right? So in that case, it's really useful. Also, format company names. This is something that you also get with really you don't need Clay agent, or you don't need ChatGPT on Clay to do this. You can probably do it with formulas in Google Sheets, or even a lead formatter. And then another one is analyze the company's website and determine how the company can benefit from your service. So this is kind of within using AI to write copy, or using AI to determine how a company can benefit from your offer, for example. So this is something you can use, for example, when you have a creative offer. Like, you can maybe a marketing agency, but what I'm thinking is really anything, any offer which outcome can be different according to the client, right? Or which end result can be different according to the client. So if, for example, you have a client that that doesn't really have a specific offer, a well-defined offer with a very tangible outcome specific to an ICP, then this could be useful. So what you can do is use ChatGPT or Claygen to visit a company's website, the lead's website, and determine how the company can benefit from your specific service or your specific offer. And what you're going to have to do as well is you're going to have to put context as far as what the offer is inside of ChatGPT, and examples as well. So one big thing as far as using ChatGPT inside of Clay, and really anywhere, is using examples. So if you put in like enough examples that are accurate and that are exactly how you want the output to be, then it's gonna give you a pretty good output, right? So another example or another use case of Clay is scraping data from LinkedIn. This is very simple, and it's just about like scraping like data from a LinkedIn a person's LinkedIn profile, or a company's LinkedIn page, right? You can find a lot of information about that as well. You can probably use that information alone to disqualify prospects and disqualify leads, and so that's really useful, I think. So about section experiences, you can mention, you can personalize based on the about section. This kind of falls within the personalization realm. And as far as experiences, you can mention their past experiences in our companies, and you can sort of create a target angle or relevant angle based on that alone. Or you can determine whether they're active on LinkedIn based on their last activity or posts. So I know many people as well have started doing some LinkedIn outreach. So that's something you can use for your LinkedIn outreach. Like you can just use Clay to get a list that is of relevant prospects and are also active on LinkedIn. If you can't scrape them from SalesNav, because the only way to do it, I think, with LinkedIn outreach, like the only way to find people and leads that are active on LinkedIn or ever been active on LinkedIn for the last 30 days is using SalesNav. So you can also do that within Clay, right? And that way you don't need to rely on SalesNav to build your list. That's a pretty big advantage. So company's LinkedIn page, I think the most useful piece of data you can get from a company's LinkedIn page is the description. You can use that as a set to determine whether the company fits your ICP or not, right? So another example, I think a couple of people asked me about this, is essentially scoring leads. So let me walk you through a table I built for lead scoring. By the way, in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt me. All right, so this is normal data so far. I'm going to show you the part where we actually do the lead scoring. So here we have the website. This is a client that we're targeting dealerships in the US, and we have a bunch of data points that we need to use to determine whether the prospect is qualified or not. And so we're using this lead scoring table, right? So we have the website here. We're going to find how many vehicles they have in stock. So this is a Claygen column. We're just going to ask, basically, let me know how many vehicles are in stock. Like very, very simple, right? And so it's going to output the number. And then based on that, actually, let me show you all the data points. So here we also have, well, this is the same thing. Here we also have the technology. So if they have these different tools, then, like, for example, if they have this, then they're unqualified. If they have this, I think they are also unqualified. If they have none, then they're qualified, right? So so this is as far as technologies. So here we're basically using ChatGPT to go to the company's website and determine basically the type of photos that they have on the website. So whether the photos of their cars, we're talking about car dealerships, so whether the photos of their cars are taken outdoors or using a photo booth or indoors. And so that is just one data point that is useful for my client. So another one is we're determining using again ChatGPT. So this is like really simple. Like sometimes it just overcomplicates stuff, but you can really just ask ChatGPT to do something and it's gonna do it. So we're just saying like, are the photos taken outdoors or with a photo booth or indoors? And you just give it a couple of examples, and the output is very good. So here we're asking ChatGPT whether the photos on the website, on the car dealership's website, are consistent or inconsistent in terms of whether they're taken with the same angle, with the same light, and all of that stuff. So and this is the lead score. This is an interesting part. So here you can essentially put a bunch of scoring criteria. So the scoring criteria here, number of scoring criteria, pretty simple. Scoring criteria number 1, we've got cars in stock. If the number is like, we have 5 different options. If it's between 0 and 50, we're going to give it a 0 score. If it's, because ideally more cars is better. So if it's between 51 to 100, we're going to give it a 1. And then if it's, for example, 250 between 2000, we're going to give it a 4, right? Scoring criteria number 2, so pretty simple. Scoring criteria number 2 is technologies. So here, if we have Impel, we're going to give it a minus 100, because if they have Impel, they're strongly unqualified, so we're not going to reach out to them. If they have Flick Fusion, then we're going to give it a 2. So Flick Fusion is actually a good technology to have. If they have this one, less automotive, then we're going to give it a 1. So good as well. If they have none, then it is the best one. So the best option, best circumstance, so we're going to give it a 4, right? Scoring criteria number 3 is car location. If the car location is within a photo booth, we're going to give it a minus 20 because they're unqualified for the service or the offer. If they have outdoors photos taken outdoors, we're going to give it a 4. So this is good. Indoors, we're going to give it a 2. Okay. And then the last one, the scoring criteria number 4, we've got image type. If they are simple stuff, consistent, we're going to give it a 0. If it's, if they have inconsistent images, we're going to give it a 8, right? And then here, essentially, you can this is the sum of all these numbers. So I think the maximum is 20. This one, 19, is a pretty qualified lead based on the scoring table. This minus 15 is going to be an unqualified lead that we're not going to reach out to, right? And then based on that, you can determine the number that you want the score to be above of, and you can just reach out to those people. If the score is lower than that number, you're just going to disqualify those people. And so there, for example, if you're going to do it within Clay, for example, I might just want leads with a score of at least 10. I want to do a formula here, is score above 10, assuming that the score is a number cell, right? We've got true or false here. This is checked. And then from there, just filter here and then do score evaluation is checked, and you're only going to have the qualified leads, right? So only the 19 one. Cool. So that is all for the scoring table. I think I had just one more thing here. So personalization. I'm not a big fan of personalization just for the sake of doing it. So I'm gonna give you guys this sentence. This is basically a first line I use whenever I'm a bit struggling with replies. So this is gonna give you more replies. Like this is gonna increase your reply rate. And essentially you're just assuming that you are reaching out to the wrong contact, right? And by doing this, sometimes if you have a very small TAM, for a campaign you want to run, we have a very small TAM, you can broaden up the search a little bit, and then you can use this sentence right here. So basically what you're going to do here is you're just going to reach out to, well, basically the same prospect. You're just going to say, not sure if you are the right person to speak about this. Should I get in touch with this colleague instead, right? And so you can find the colleague name by using the find contacts at company column, right? And so using the find contacts a company column inside of Clay, you're gonna have to put in the website URL or the LinkedIn URL for the company, and then you're gonna have to put in some job titles as far as what you want those leads to be, and then you basically the column is gonna output some examples or some results, and you're just gonna have to select like the first one or the second one, and then name that person, right? Also, when you're doing this, if you're gonna do this, I also recommend you to check whether the contact that the find contacts at company column scraped and put as output is the same person as the contact that you are reaching out to, right? Because that could happen. And so in that case, you just want to make sure you're not reaching out to that same person. And you can run a conditional formula to rerun the find contacts at company column only if the first result was the same person as your prospect. I'm not sure if this was entirely clear. And then sending software integration. So if you're using Instantly or Smartly, as I think most people in Closing Plans Group are using, you can integrate that within Clay. So you can do like if a lead completes the Clay table and is qualified based on a specific conditional formula, you can send that lead to the specific campaign on Smartly or Instantly, and it's going to send that automatically. So I think it's very useful. I don't use Instantly or Smartly right now, so I'm not using that integration, but I think it's very useful as well. So you can also, remove leads, find leads, find if a specific lead is already in a campaign, which I think would be useful. If you don't want to reach the same leads that you already have in your sending software. So I know many people also think that Clay is expensive. So I dedicated just one slide to setting credits on Clay, how we can do that. So first one is you want to use the API keys whenever you can. So for all the tools that you're going to use the API keys. ChatGPT, by all means, use the API, OpenAI API key. Really anything that you can use the API key for, just use it. That's it. And then use conditional formulas. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with conditional formulas, but let me show you an example. So let's say that, let's present this. So let's say, now I'm gonna remove the filter here. Okay, we got two leads here. I've got two leads, one is 19 score, one is minus 15, right? Let's say that I want to find, I don't know, find the email or whatever, scrape the, what is this? Scrape the LinkedIn company page of this company, right? Let's say I want to do an action. I'm just saying this for for the purpose of the example. So let's say that I want to enrich the company page, see, enrich company. And I want to use the website as the company identifier. And I only want to do this for the qualified leads, right? So for the leads that have a score at least 10 or higher, right? So I can do this. I can set up a conditional formula using the run settings here, and always use AI because it's just going to be easier. I want to only run this column if the score is above 10. So if the score evaluation column is checked, right? So I'm going to use AI, and then I'm going to say only run this column if what was the column score evaluation is checked. Okay, it's going to create a formula, a conditional formula, and as you can see, for score evaluation true, so higher than 10, this is going to run. The column is going to run. For score evaluation false, it's not going to run, right? So let's say it works. I don't know. I want to scrape whatever the description. Let's run it for the first two rows, and as you can see, for the second row, which was the unqualified lead, minus 15, score evaluation was unchecked. It is not running, right? So this is very useful for setting credits because this certain columns are going to cost you Clay credits, and even if they just cost you like API calls, like the cost of an API call, like you still want to save that, like if you can, right? So because it's going to save you either like both money and time, right? If you're doing very big lists inside of Clay, it's going to take you a little bit of time to run all of the enrichments for all the rows. So as you can see here, for this cell, it costs 1 credit. As you can see here, charged 1. And then for this other, it didn't run, so no credits were charged. Okay, so that's all I think. Let me actually see here. And then the last one is for waterfall enrichments, whether you're using like an email waterfall enrichment, or you can even do a phone number waterfall enrichment. Always start with the cheapest tool. That's the easiest thing to do there. Start with the cheapest tool, see if they can find the email or the phone number, and then continue with the more expensive ones. Some of these tools for like phone numbers, if you're doing phone number, they are pretty expensive in terms of credits. So you might just want to put them at the bottom of the enrichment. So I think that's all I have. So do you guys have any questions on this?